What if the biggest thing blocking you from understanding God is not distance, but something inside you? There is a verse. It says, "God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble." And at first, this sounds strange. It can sound like God is rejecting people, getting offended, turning away from those who make mistakes. But that is not what this verse is actually saying. The meaning is deeper and much more personal than that. Because this verse is not only about how God responds to people, it is also about what happens inside a person. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine a simple situation. A person is in a conversation and someone disagrees with them. They immediately feel the need to defend themselves. They interrupt, they correct, they prove their point. Not because truth is important in that moment, but because being right feels more important than understanding. Now imagine another situation. Someone gives them advice, something helpful, something honest. But instead of listening, they dismiss it immediately. They don't understand me. That doesn't apply to me. I already know this. Now another moment. They realize they made a mistake. But instead of admitting it, they explain it away. They justify it. They reinterpret it. They protect their image. And finally, there is a moment where they feel something inside them is wrong. But instead of stopping and reflecting, they push forward anyway. I will figure it out myself. At first glance, these look like different situations. A conflict, a rejected advice, a defended mistake, a moment of independence. But in reality, they are all the same thing. They are all different expressions of one inner force: pride. And pride is not always loud. It is not always arrogance. Sometimes pride is very quiet. Sometimes it looks like self-protection. Sometimes it looks like independence. Sometimes it even looks like confidence. But at its core, pride is something deeper. It is resistance to being corrected, resistance to being changed, resistance to truth when it challenges the self. Because truth does not always come comfortably. It often interrupts what we already believe about ourselves, and pride says, "I don't want to be challenged." The book of Proverbs in the Bible has a lot to say about this. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18 says, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall." This is not a threat, it is a warning. It is saying that pride creates blind spots, and blind spots lead to bad decisions, and bad decisions lead to painful consequences. Proverbs chapter 11 verse 2 says, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom." So pride and wisdom cannot live in the same room. Pride blocks wisdom. Humility invites it. And this is where the verse becomes clearer. God opposes the proud. This does not mean God becomes emotional or offended. It means something more simple. God does not force truth into a closed heart, because a closed heart does not receive it. Not because God is far, but because the person is not open to it. And over time, that resistance feels like distance, but it is actually misalignment. Think of it like a radio signal. The station is broadcasting clearly, but if the receiver is broken or tuned to the wrong frequency, you hear nothing but static. The problem is not the station. The problem is the receiver. Pride breaks the receiver. It makes you unable to hear what is being offered. Then the verse continues, "But he gives grace to the humble." Humility is not weakness. It is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. Humility is openness. It is the ability to say, "I don't have all the answers. I can learn. I can be corrected. I want truth more than I want to be right." And something powerful happens in that moment. The walls begin to lower, not because a person becomes less valuable, but because they become reachable. Reachable to truth. Reachable to wisdom. reachable to growth. And in a spiritual sense, reachable to God. Jesus told a story about this. 2 men went to pray. One was a religious leader. The other was a tax collector, someone society looked down on. The religious leader stood and prayed about himself. He said, "God, I thank you that I am not like other people. I am not a thief. I am not a cheater. I fast twice a week. I give 10% of everything I get." He was comparing himself to others. He was listing his achievements. He was proud. But he did not even realize it. The tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven. He beat his chest and said, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." Jesus said that the tax collector went home forgiven, and the religious leader did not. Why? Because the religious leader was full of himself. There was no room for grace. The tax collector was empty, and grace rushed in. Humility is not about pretending to be less than you are. It is about being honest about who you really are. So how does pride show up in daily life? It is not only in big dramatic moments, it is in small reactions. The need to defend yourself too quickly, the inability to admit small mistakes, the habit of rejecting advice before even considering it, the quiet voice that says, "I don't need to change," the irritation you feel when someone points out a blind spot, the way you explain away your own faults but highlight the faults of others. Pride also shows up as comparison. When you look at someone else and think, "At least I am not like them," that is pride. When you secretly feel superior because you read more, pray more, or know more, that is pride. When you cannot celebrate someone else's success because it makes you feel smaller, that is pride. And here is the hardest kind of pride to see: spiritual pride. When you think you understand God better than others, when your theology becomes a weapon instead of an invitation, when you confuse knowing about God with actually knowing God. That kind of pride is dangerous because it wears a mask. It looks like devotion, but inside, it is control. So how do you begin to deal with pride? First, pause before defending yourself. Ask yourself, am I trying to be right, or am I trying to grow? That 1-second pause can change everything. Second, admit small truths out loud. I was wrong. I didn't see that. I could do better. I am sorry. Honesty weakens pride. Every time you speak a small truth, you loosen pride's grip. Third, listen without preparing your response. Most people listen only to reply. They are not really hearing. They are waiting for their turn to speak. But humility listens to understand. Try this. Next time someone gives you feedback, just say thank you before you say anything else. Fourth, ask for clarity. Even a simple prayer, "God, help me see myself clearly." That is a dangerous prayer. It will be answered, and it might be uncomfortable, but it will change you. Fifth, choose truth over ego, even when it is uncomfortable, especially when it is uncomfortable, because growth always begins where ego is challenged. Sixth, surround yourself with honest people, people who will tell you the truth, not just what you want to hear. And when they speak, do not punish them for it. Thank them. Seventh, practice gratitude. It is very hard to be proud and thankful at the same time. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you have done to what you have been given. And eighth, study humility. Read about it. Watch humble people. Notice how they respond to criticism, to mistakes, to success, and try to imitate them. So when the Bible says that God opposes the proud, it is not rejection. It is reality. Closed hearts resist truth. Open hearts receive it. And the difference between these two changes everything. Because maybe the real question is not, where is God? Maybe the real question is, what inside me is blocking me from hearing Him? Pride makes you feel like you are standing tall, but actually it is shrinking your world. It narrows your vision. It hardens your heart. It makes you defensive, lonely, and exhausted, because maintaining an image is exhausting. Humility, on the other hand, expands your world. It opens you to learning. It deepens your relationships. It brings peace, because you no longer have to pretend you have it all together. One of the most powerful prayers you can pray is this: God, show me what I cannot see about myself. That prayer takes courage, because you might not like what you see, but what you see can be healed. What you hide cannot. The walls you have built to protect yourself may actually be trapping you, and the door out is not more defending. It is lowering the walls. Just a little. Just enough to let truth in. So let me ask you directly, when was the last time you admitted you were wrong without explaining why? When was the last time you genuinely thanked someone for correcting you? When was the last time you said to God, I don't understand, teach me? If you cannot remember, those are not small things. They are signals. Signals that pride might be quietly building walls you did not even notice. But here is the good news. Walls can come down. Not all at once, but one brick at a time. One small, honest moment at a time. One, I was wrong, at a time. One genuine prayer at a time. Grace is not for perfect people. It is for honest ones. If this message made you think differently about pride and humility, hit like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what is one small way you have seen pride show up in your own life? Not someone else's, yours. Thanks for watching. See you next time.